Welcome to WagerTalk TV. I am Kelly Stewart, joined by Ralph Michaels and Bryan Leonard.
He's one of your favorite handicappers.
Two of her favorite
Both of my
people here
favorite
now
people.
that Marco's not here.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
God, he was so
Still
mad at me
never
for
know.
that. Him and Teddy, I just sat there in silence.
But you can't, everyone can't be your favorite, so you just have to pick.
After a while, they think you're lying.
Yeah.
Well, you know. Anyway, no, Ralph helps me out the most. So,
I know Ralph is your favorite.
So he has to be my favorite because I need everything from him. All right, guys. College basketball conference play right around the corner into February. So let's give the people what they want. Let's give them some good tips. Ralph, I'll start with you.
Well, there's two different things. Right now, we're at the start of conference basketball as we're filming this. The Big Ten has 4 or 5 games in. Some conferences have 3. So the number one rule to me is when you're coming into conference play, when you're comparing teams, it is mandatory to look at strength of schedule. There are conference teams that play absolutely nobody's sister of the poors. You know, the Baylors that, you know, want to go 14-0 to get to 25 wins, and that's what they do. And there's other teams that, you know, play multiple tournaments and set up these non-conference mini tournaments. So, number one, that's the most important thing to me. Number two is, especially when you're looking at totals, you know, Tony and I talked about in a different video how Kentucky uses their non-conference, working out different lineups, testing new people, trying different people at point guards. Well, when you get to conference play, you get those a lot tighter. You may have been playing 7, 8, or 9 guys, and now you may be playing 7 or 8 man rotations.
More of a cohesive unit at this point in time.
Absolutely. You start getting familiarity, you start getting hot teams, and you don't have those ups and downs that you have shooting. You have a middle of the road team, let's say a MAC team. Well, a MAC team plays Virginia, they may shoot 22%. Then they play Savannah State, they may shoot 65%. So you have to look at those variances and try to even them out.
Yeah, I agree. It's a totally different season, basically, from non-conference to regular conference, because as you pointed out, a lot of these teams, they're just trying to get their rotation set early in the season, and they don't really care as much if they win or lose the games. It doesn't matter as much. They just want to be ready for conference action. Your goal, unless you are in the top 10 in the country, is to win your conference. And so you want to get everybody set before you get into conference play. Once you get into conference play, you know your rotations. Another thing I like to look at is when you're looking at home-road dichotomies early in the season, it really doesn't matter anything. When you get to conference play, these kids, unless you're one and done in some of these conferences, they've been here 3 or 4 times. They played at these places. So your home advantages aren't as strong. And it's similar to the NFL. Divisional home favorites aren't as strong as non-divisional home favorites. It's the same in college basketball. You may have a real strong home court because you play teams that never play there, but you play a team that's there every single year. It's a little bit different. And also in conference action, they know how these teams play. You see like Air Force play earlier in the season. Totally different type of games than you see when people play Air Force every single season because they know what those coaches know what Air Force likes to do. So it's a totally different game come playoff time, come conference time, and pay attention to these teams that are pretty equal. When they lose a game, a lot of times they bounce back in the second time they play them, and they're able to get that victory because they're on the same level.
That's a great lead-in. I am going to take a minute here and just go through some numbers. Of course, we have to have a little T&A if we're talking with Kelly. So, how often do you hear it's tough to beat a team twice?
Too much.
How often do you hear it's tough to beat a team 3 times? Well, let's just put those numbers to rest. I only did the last couple years because they were close and people can have an example. Well, if you lose the first game and you're playing them again the second game, over the last 2 years, you're 12.45 and 12.11. You're 50.7%. So don't worry about changing the way you handicap.
If a team won or against the spread?
That's against the spread.
Okay.
So again, but there's a lot of variances. Losing at home, now let's say you lost as a home favorite the first time you've played. Something you've talked about. You're losing, and now you play them again. Well, you are 212 and 186. You're 53.3%. So a positive, but nothing you're going to base a play on. Let's say you lost as a double-digit home favorite. You were embarrassed. You lost as a double-digit home favorite. The second time you've played them, you are 45.2%. You are 19 and 23 against the spread. 4 teams I want to point up that's going to come up this year. North Carolina lost to Louisville as a double-digit home favorite. Arizona lost to Utah. Arizona State lost to Utah. Duke lost to Syracuse. And Ball State lost to Eastern Michigan. So those
So
are
what you're saying is that the general public, the betting public, is looking at that team.
automatic. They lost as a double-digit favorite. It is revenge.
It's a
You've
good story,
got to back
and because
Duke
of that
again,
good,
is what they're- okay.
because of that good story, the line is bet up.
Would you say that's a trap game?
Not such thing as a trap, but it's similar to in football. Texas played Maryland the first week of the season.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody's big revenge
Yeah.
game for Texas. They lose the
Wait,
game straight
double
up.
digits again.
It's the lines are affected by that. People bet it up, and that's why these numbers are bad.
Kelly, a couple more numbers, if you don't mind. Third meeting of the season. So you're a conference opponent. You lost both conference games. You're facing each other for the third time in the conference tournament. The team that lost the first two games with double revenge, 107 and 105, 50.5%, a toss-up. Team that lost as a favorite the first two times, playing a third time. It's only happened 9 times, but they're 3-5-1, 37%. So again, both times, the team that lost as a favorite the first time, either once or twice, is a negative number. And the last thing I want to point out, because I did this for another show, and it's off topic, but it is part of the topic, non-conference games in January are very rare. You have a couple teams that play crossover conferences, and sometimes you play a non-conference game. Home dogs, if you're a non-conference home dog in January only, you're 32 and 18, 64%. If you're a small conference home dog from 0 to 4, you're 20 and 8, 71.4%. So just a note there, when you do have this rare January non-conference team as a home dog.
Since you took the last one, I'll do on this one. You were talking about how those teams were, and it's all in the storylines. Everybody likes a good story. That's one of the reasons why you should have your own power ratings, because in those games, I'm sure the lines were inflated based on
Absolutely,
that storyline,
yes.
and that's why the numbers come out bad. It's a game that you can avoid by not having the correct line.
Awesome. Great stuff from both guys. Tuesday is always $2 Tuesday, and you get the hottest handicapper at WagerTalk's best bet for just $2.